Happy birthday, Home Assistant.
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 Happy birthday to Abukasa and Home Assistant. Sretan vam rođendan.
Happy birthday, Home Assistant, and thanks for making automating everything in my house really easy.
Happy birthday, Home Assistant.
Happy birthday, Home Assistant.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the 10-year anniversary of Home Assistant stream. My name is Paulus Schoutsen, and I'm the founder of Home Assistant. Today on the stream, we're going to talk and take a look at the history of Home Assistant. We're going to talk to contributors that have been there from the very beginning to the people that run the show today. We're going to talk with them about what brought them to Home Assistant, how was Home Assistant like back then. But we're also going to look at the contributions, the growth, and the achievements of Home Assistant across those 10 years. Then, afterwards, we're going to have some very, very exciting news because we've got some cool things that we've cooked up over the last couple of months that we were super excited to share with you today. All right, so let's get started. Ten years ago, when I started Home Assistant, I wasn't planning on any of this, right? I was at the University of California, San Diego, and I was there to finish my master thesis. And then a new product got launched, and here it was called Philips Hue. And Philips Hue, as we all know today, it's a hub that talks Zigbee to light bulbs. And back then, the first version came out, and it was a starter kit. So $220, way too expensive. It got you a hub, it got you 3 light bulbs, and the best thing of all, the hub had a local API. So I really like programming. I had a hub with a local API. Of course, obvious next step, I needed to get that control in my Python programming code. So I was able to control the hub not too long later. And I realized, I want to do something with this, right? Just being able to do something is great, but I kind of want to apply it and make it useful for me in my life. So what I did back then is that I wrote a small script, pulled in the sun when the sun was setting, and I made a script that turned on the lights whenever the sun was setting. Now, this worked great. Every night, boom, lights turn on. However, what did I realize? Oh, the light is also turning on when there's no one home. So I wrote a small, quick script to log into my Wi-Fi router, look at which phones are connected, presence detection was born, and all of a sudden I could make sure that the lights would only turn on when people are home. Then, of course, things get more complicated. For example, what if you're coming home while the lights are supposed to turn on? You want the lights to be turned on. So there needs to be, not a simple automation. That became like a complex automation. And so this kept growing and iterating. And I kept kind of hacking on the script that I was running at home. And at some point I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just put it online. So I kind of kept iterating on it, cleaning it up a bit, making sure it was configurable. Instead of having to write Python code, you could actually just write a configuration file. And then 10 years ago, on the 17th of September 2013, I pushed it to GitHub. And nothing happened. Because, GitHub is such a large space, nobody just goes around looking at random GitHub accounts. Slowly, I started sharing the solutions we had with Home Assistant at places in the internet where we were talking about home automation. So one of the places was Reddit, on the home automation subreddit. And, whenever there was somebody that had oh, how do I solve this? I would be like, well, this is how I have solved it in Home Assistant. And slowly, bit by bit, some more people started using Home Assistant. Some people started contributing even, which was amazing. I never had people contribute code to me before. And yeah, the community started growing around Home Assistant, but it was so tiny. It's like a fraction of what it is now. One of those people that was early on in 2015 discovered Home Assistant and started contributing was Ryan Kraus. And Ryan is no longer active within Home Assistant, but I've been able to get in touch with him, and I invited him today to come talk about his early experience. Why did he go to Home Assistant? What did he like about it? How did he experience that time? So welcome, Ryan Kraus.
Hey, how are you?
Ryan, good to see you. This is
Yeah,
great.
good to see you, my friend.
It's been a while. For you're no longer active within Home Assistant, I guess. It's been at least 5 years, I think, maybe a bit longer even.
Probably about that, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, you were there from the very early days. I mean, I say very early days. I think I looked up the email, and I think you sent an email to our mailing list because we were using mailing lists back then.
Yeah.
2015, right?
Jeez, man, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, but do you remember what brought you to Home Assistant?
Yeah, I do. So I remember I was, I actually didn't set out looking for something. I set out I was going to build, like Python scripts to just start connecting on my home devices, and then, I looked at some of the other alternatives in the home automation community at the time, but they're all kind of like Java based, and I just really wanted to work in Python. And then I found Home Assistant. I'm like, wow, I don't have to make this. Someone else already did. And I remember I tried out the front end, and I was just impressed with how responsive and fast it was. And I was like, man, this is better than anything I could make. So I'm gonna use this.
I mean, I still remember your email was like, I've never seen something this beautiful. Like,
yeah, I remember I read through the code and in 30 minutes maybe, and just read through the entire code base, which is probably a good testament to how small it used to be. I don't know if you can still do that.
That original core is actually still intact. Like, that's the way state services, like events, that's still the way Home Assistant runs today.
Awesome.
You became a core developer, and I remember you as being one of the most one of the people that came up with the most creative solutions to like.
That's a good way to put it. It's a very nice way to put it. Had a lot of wacky contributions.
Yeah, but I think we still use it today. So back in the days, I would still go to Python conferences. Right? We met twice at a Python conference.
Twice, yeah.
It's like that was cool. We would do these like sprints. Do you remember those sprints? Like after the conference was over.
I did. Those were a lot of fun. I mean, most of the time that I spent in those sprints, I remember I just was getting people up and running and like helping them set up their Python environments. And that was a really fun way to like meet other people in the community that were interested. And I remember one guy came up to one of the sprints, and it was him, his wife, and their daughter, and they were living on a bus. And he was like, yeah, I want Home Assistant to manage my bus. I was like, that sounds awesome.
That was
I
remember
still
the talk I did at Portland, right, on PyCon 2016, I think. And I remember him asking in the audience, like, hey, if I have a bus, can I use Home Assistant? And then we actually added a service location, a service to Home Assistant to set your location from a service call, so that you could link up like your automation to automatically, hey, when the device tracker of my bus moves, change the home location of Home Assistant so that you get the right sunrise and these kind of like things.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know that features ended up getting put in for that. Yeah. I remember that guy vividly.
I think solving problems has always been the core of what Home Assistant community does. Whether it's like, sharing solutions through code, through YAML, through blueprints, all that stuff. And I think that's
that's always been that was always the best part about Home Assistant, was the community of people that are just, hackers and tinkers and like, putting together these crazy scripts in YAML and seeing what works. It was always a lot of fun to talk to people. I learned a lot. And that was, one of the things I really, appreciated the most is like when I came into developing on Home Assistant, I was a really bad developer, but like I didn't know, because like I was, I hadn't really worked with other people because I was an aerospace engineer at the time. So like, I didn't really work with developers, so I didn't know how bad I was. And then I was like, oh man, this Paulus guy's a lot better than me. And I remember I learned a lot just by contributing and like, getting feedback on merge requests about like forking processes and doing all sorts of horrible things.
I mean, that is the spirit of open source, right? It's like we train people and and then they become the ones training the next generation, right? Like,
yeah, it was definitely a turning point in like my career, even just having that opportunity to learn. But yeah, I mean just all about community, and I think Home Assistant has always done a really good job of being a good open source community, and realizing that open source code isn't so much about the code as it is about the community. And I think that gets lost on a lot of people that just want to like code on their little project and put it on GitHub and just run it for themselves, which is fine. But like, yeah, I mean, the difference between, a weekend project and something more, interesting is it's the community.
Yeah,
and,
no, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think the thing people don't realize is that it takes so much time, right? Like building that community and like, fostering it and growing it and making sure that it's like a nice place to hang out. That's, that it was a big job back then. It's like it's an even bigger job today.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's not easy. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's why a lot of people don't do it. But I mean, and it starts with the code, honestly. Like the code of Home Assistant had to be modular enough that like people can bring whatever that they're using and bring it in there. And so I mean, you kind of like the community kind of starts with the code, where the code has to be accepting of whatever people want to bring, and then your community can be accepting on top of that. But yeah, that was definitely my favorite part about working on Home Assistant. Just all the different crazy things people would do. One time I was developing, I don't remember what I was working on, but I was developing something on Home Assistant, and we were in the living room of our house. My wife had like fallen asleep on the couch. I'm sitting on my chair, just hacking away, and I hit enter, to start it up, check out my new feature. And as soon as I turned on, my development branch, like all the lights started flashing in the house. The garage started opening and closing. My TV started turning on and off. My wife woke up. She's like, "What is going on?" I was like, "It was a bug. My bad." Which is, that's what probably the other part of the fun of Home Assistant is, like, you're interacting with physical things in the real world. So when you have a bug in your code, it's just a lot more spectacular.
All right, Ryan, thank you so much for all your stories. This was great. Good luck, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Paulus.
Next up, another long-term contributor to the Home Assistant project, Tobias Sauerwein. I first met him at the first Home Assistant meetup that I attended in Frankfurt back in the days, and he's been with the project as long as I remember. So, hello, Tobias.
Hey, Paulus. How are you doing?
So, yeah, I just, let's start at the beginning. Like, how did you kind of roll into Home Assistant?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I was interested in the whole home automation stuff for quite a little while, but no open source project really cut it for me. And then eventually I stumbled across Home Assistant, and I think it was around Christmas where I was bored and just tinkered with it. Yeah, and I found it really approachable, and I enjoyed that it was written in Python, which was my favorite language back then and still is. And so I started as a user and really enjoyed the very open and helpful, friendly community around it. I mean, it was not as close as big as it is now, but it was great. I met a lot of very helpful, friendly people. To some of them, I'm still connected, and we talk about things around Home Assistant or other stuff. And then I think sooner or later I started looking into integrations and writing them myself and contributing it. I think it was NetAtmo that caught my attention back then, because I had hardware myself, and I found that the integration was lacking a bit and took it over from, I don't remember who was doing it first. Yeah, and that's how I grew. That's how I got into it. And I still remember my very first contribution. I don't remember what it was, but I really have good memory of my first code review.
I hope it wasn't too harsh.
Yeah, it felt pretty harsh, but in hindsight, I really learned that was the real point to grow and to learn. And I still love harsh code reviews. I mean not harsh in the way they are written, but I still really enjoy reviewers that are picky and that go deeper and deeper and find problems that I don't see when implementing stuff.
I mean, I feel like that's how, like, you know, we've had a pretty high bar of like code reviews and code quality, I feel, since the beginning. And it has, you know, I see it with a lot of contributors, right? Like the first PR is always a bit like, oh, that's a lot of comments. Like there's a lot of room for improvement. But like once you kind of do it the first time, the second time, you know, those mistakes you won't make again. And like we end up with like a very high quality like set of integrations built into Home Assistant.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that is one of the key points. That the quality bar is pretty high, at least, or especially the things that are built in. And built in, that's like 1,700 plus integrations. I mean,
something
that
like
is
this.
insane. and it appears that the manufacturers are actually taking Home Assistant serious now.
Oh yeah,
that is a really, really great point. And that was like, okay, now they are really taking it serious. And it's funny, back then, like 7 or 8 years ago, when I talked with colleagues about it or friends, it was a niche thing. And so, okay, never heard about it. Yeah, looks interesting, but what can it actually do? And now, I mean, I know so many people privately that we're talking about it and say, oh, you're using it too. Yeah, indeed. That is really funny.
It's you know, I hope we can continue that growth, right? So you know, we're hopefully that like more and more people can access like a privacy-focused smart home. That's
it's more accessible with each release for non-tech savvy people,
right?
Actually, too. So that is a really improvement, a real improvement. Yes.
How have you experienced the growth of Home Assistant?
Actually, I think never in a negative way. I always found that the community, even when it was growing, well, like crazy sometimes, it never felt bad in a way. And even though that there are always discussions like YAML yes or no back then, and that was funny because in the end it proved most of them wrong. So I think you have that with every community, more or less. But I think the core values are still held up, and that is really, I think that is pretty unique. Yeah, and the projects that go with it, like ESP Home, and so that is really inspiring to see that grow and to grow together and to make people find their own niches and find their own ideas and make them happen.
So, you know, you mentioned that, like, you know, we talked about the pull requests and how we kind of raised the bar, and, you know, how did that change the way you were programming, like, in general?
Quite a lot, because I learned how to see issues earlier, and I learned how to actually even give code feedbacks and code critics. But what, in hindsight, what really amazes me the most is how much it actually changed my life personally. Because back then, I mean, I did learn all that stuff in high school, but then somehow my job life went another way, and never really did much with programming at all. And yeah, until I came back to open source and Home Assistant, and which helped me find a new perspective, what to do or what I really wanted to do. And so I spent quite a lot of time improving that, and by contributing and code reviewing other stuff and such. And so in the end, it played well for me, I think, because I gave up my old job and found one where I could where I can now develop software with another set of amazing people, which help me grow every day. And so that unique opportunity to grow and learn with so many great people that are really knowledgeable and share their knowledge, that is really something I took away from it, because it's not only that you can program, it's also that you can share the knowledge and communicate it and help others, and that was a really great journey for me.
Awesome. That's so good to hear. That's a great story. All right, Tobias, that was awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the stream today, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and have a good one.
All right. So that was Tobias, longtime contributor to the Home Assistant project. Okay, next up is the one and only Pascal Vizeli. Now, Pascal Vizeli joined the project in 2016, and he became the one that introduced the operating system and the supervisor. So what we think of today of Home Assistant is actually the application I originally built, wrapped in the operating system that Pascal built. And also later, he became one of the co-founders of Nabokasa, and today he is the acting chief financial officer. He doesn't program as much anymore, but he still knows a lot. So we're going to talk and go all the way back. Welcome, Pascal.
Hi, Paulus. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great to have you on the stream. All right, I gave you a quick introduction already about where the year you started, 2016. Do you remember how you got to Home Assistant?
Yes, I used in my home back in the days OpenHub, which was a bit too slow. So I was looking around for something which, probably work better than what I had, and I end up with Home Assistant. But my problem was a bit back in the days. All my German-based device which we used in Germany or in German-speaking area was not supported by Home Assistant. So my first half year was just to add all the integration before I was able to migrate over to Home Assistant and use it in my production system. Yeah.
I remember, I think one of the first ones you added was Homematic, right?
Right, yeah. That was the biggest one. I worked together with Daniel. We worked, I guess, 4 months on that integration, and we was really happy that it just got merged in time, more or less. Yeah.
The thing that you contributed that really changed the course of Home Assistant has been the operating system and the supervisor, of course. How did that get started?
Yeah, I mean, I had Home Assistant, and a lot of friends and family visit my home and said, "Oh, that's really cool. I want that. Oh, can you install that on my home? Can you help me?" And I just said, "No, sorry, it's too complex." And it was a bit sad because it's my time in the project and no one can use it, which I know. And then I was thinking, wow, what we have to do for what can I do for making it accessible for all my friends and family. And then I started with a Bellona clone as our operating system. Yeah, every device had its own repository, and of course, I mean, they had their own supervisor, which was just a kind of cloud connection. I didn't want to run all the system fully in a cloud, and then I was a bit looking to the Raspberry Matic, and they used Buildroot, and the structure was a lot cleaner. And then I started to report everything into Buildroot. Yeah. And then we had our own embedded Linux system.
I mean, that's what we have today, right? It's Home Assistant is an embedded Linux. It takes like a Raspberry Pi or Home Assistant Yellow and just turns it into like a full appliance. People don't use command lines. People can update through the UI. There's an automatic rollback. If Home Assistant update fails, there's an automatic rollback. If the operating system update fails, you can install add-ons. You can expand with functionalities that like an MQTT server or Node-RED. It's just a single click install. It's awesome. I think that it really changed the course of history for us, right? Because instead of being a system administrator, Python virtual environment, pip install, it's like, no, here is you just install this box, and now you have a box. It's your smart home, and it just works. And what we see actually today, and it's super interesting, is that even advanced users, like myself included, I just run Home Assistant operating system, right? Because I don't want to bother with maintenance and system admin if I don't have to. In fact, like nowadays, like I have my spare time is way limited, like because I have kids and there's just a lot of things going on. And so I don't want to sit there and maintain a Linux system for my smart home. I just want to have Home Assistant OS, click update, and be done with it. So, you found the operating system. And then, of course, you're one of the co-founders of Nabucasa together with me and Ben Bangert. And, because what happened back then, and I think that, people don't remember anymore, but we were doing, every 2 weeks we were doing a release, Home Assistant OS. There was like so many different boards that were supported, and bugs came in every day, 1,000 integrations. And, we were just like, we were pretty much burning out back then, right? We had, we almost like, we felt the need, like we have to start a company. If we don't start a company, then basically we wouldn't have any, us anymore in like 6 months or something. And I guess we just did it. I feel like, I think we had this conversation a few months ago. We're like, will we do it again? It's like, today, I wouldn't start a new smart home platform or like such a big project again. I don't know where I found all that time, right?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, it was so much effort and all the time which we spent into. I cannot believe how we did that today. How we run. I mean, now we have a big team and all help and to keep that all running. But back in the days, it was just almost you and me.
Once we started Nabucasa, we finally got some revenue. You were the first one to focus full time on Nabucasa. I was back then still employed by Ubiquiti. Ubiquiti was paying me to work full time on Home Assistant. They did that for a year. And at the end of that year, I also joined Nabucasa as second employee. And then I guess, Bram joined like not long thereafter to help with the front end. And, we've been growing ever since.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. I just remember, I mean, in the beginning, I feel a bit alone. I mean, I was the only developer who was in California. And from time zone, it was a really big distance. And today, we have so amazing team all over all time zones. It's completely different. But I would jump again into cold water and do the same. It was really, it was and is still fun to work with you and all the contributors and Home Assistant. It's an amazing project.
It is. It's, I think that's for me also, like I was like reflecting by myself, like it's been 10 years and, the reason I'm still here is because it's so much fun. Like we keep pushing the boundaries of what we do. And like we have ESP Home, we're building small devices. We have the Home Assistant Yellow, people have a hub they can use. And we keep expanding our horizon and having the vision of like, let's make sure that everyone has access to a privacy-focused smart home and not just the nerds and the rich. There's so much fun involved as well for me to see what people do. It's just like, yeah, I'm going to be here for a long time.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Then Mikasa has been, no investors. We were financially stable from the beginning because, well, we jumped into like 5 years Home Assistant and we took it to the community saying, we want to make development sustainable. We want to offer a private and local alternative to the big tech solutions. But then came actually the even harder part because we had to grow to a certain level to make it sustainable. And to make it sustainable, I think it took 10 employees, 10 people working full time before the task that both Pascal and I were doing back then were fully like, okay, now there's someone else that can also take care of it. And it's not just us anymore.
In beginning, I did the operating system, all the platforms, the supervisor, all the testing. And now we have all the people, Stefan, which now lead the operating system, Mike, which doing an amazing job and supervisor, and just takes a lot. They just can focus to this part of the project, and that's a completely different kind of quality which they can provide.
Yeah, I think it really helps to give some breathing room to like you and me and like some others, is that we can actually start thinking, where do we want to be in a year, right? Where do we want to be in 5 years? And like, what is like, our open home vision about like privacy, choice, and sustainability came out of the fact that we were actually able to sit down and like, this is where we want to go. Okay, let's acquire ESP Home. So we have like, we can provide not just the brains of your smart home, but we also have a skin in the game of how devices need to be built. And we use that as our foundation for other hardware in the future. And yeah, I think that all came out like, giving us time to think and reason. And like, now we have a product team and like, we're actually going to make like an actual roadmap that we're going to publish hopefully in the end of the year so that everyone can like see what's coming next. And yeah, I'm super stoked about that part. Yeah. All right, Pascal. Thank you so much for coming on. This was great. Thank you for all your work, Home Assistant, Nabukasa. I'm looking forward to work together for many years to come. Thank you. Up next, one of our longtime contributors, leader of the front end, master of all JavaScript in Home Assistant, Bram Kragten. Hey, Bram.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing really good. How are you doing?
Nice. Good. The stream is going great, so I'm excited. All right, let's talk Home Assistant. You've been a Home Assistant contributor for a very, very long time. Do you remember the first time you came to Home Assistant?
I think I started using Home Assistant in 2016. I briefly used another home automation platform, but it was too complicated and I didn't feel comfortable. So the Home Assistant was just rising really fast then, and development was really fast. So I was like, okay, let's try it. And yeah, it felt good. The UI was just fresh, it looked good. And but there were some things I thought could be done a little bit better. So in 2017, I think, I created a custom UI. We didn't have dashboards then, like Lovelace didn't exist yet. So there was custom UI. I created a custom weather card. And then when I was done creating it, I found out that it was not possible for the weather domain to have custom state information, how it was called. So then I started contributing to Home Assistant and looking into it. And then development of Lovelace, the dashboard system we have nowadays, started. And eventually I jumped in with starting to add support for creating dashboards in the UI, as the dashboard were YAML only also from the beginning.
it was really complicated. I don't think people remember, but you had to use customize. You could like inject attributes into existing states to control how the magic sorting hat that would generate your dashboard would influence. And like, make groups, and like it would automatically generate tabs. And it's kind of ironic because I thought that, like, of course I can organize your dashboard. I know, like, lights, switches, sensors, like there's no need for people to actually do something. We'll do it for you. And that really couldn't be further from the truth, right? Like everyone has like the way you order your areas, the way, I mean, back then we didn't even have areas, you had to make groups, but the way you order your groups, the way you like, which things you prioritize in your room. There's no way we know, right? Like there's just no way. And the users need to be able to drag and drop and configuring that to themselves.
Yeah.
We do this month of what the heck sometimes, right? Where people can just like submit bug reports without like actually going through the, reporting your version, just anything you find annoying, and you can like report it. And the first time we did month of what the heck, people were like, bring back YAML. I want YAML to configure my, put in my username and password and whatnot. And then the second month of what the heck, which was like 2 years later, and we were further in the process of going things through the UI. Then all of a sudden, one of the upvoted things was like, why do I have to use YAML to configure this thing? Why is there no UI for like every integration out there? And it's
crazy. It went fast, and I think there's a big shift in users also. Like in the beginning, you have far more technical users because it was technical, it was difficult, and as it gets easier, you see the user base also shift. So you will have more people that want to just easily create something and add stuff, and
And I think that's also where our future lies, right? We need to make sure that people get the most out of their dashboard with the least amount of work, but that they have the freedom to really grow and like build their own dashboards.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Freedom, that's the key part of Home Assistant, I think.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Should we talk quickly about like the energy management dashboard? Like I think that one of the things that for me I found fascinating about the energy management dashboard is that we built something on top of our current infrastructure, right? Like we were always expanding our infrastructure, new ways to rent the cards, new cards. And for the first time, we actually said, no, we're going to be constrained. We're going to make decisions for you. We're going to say, you want energy? This is how you can get our energy dashboard. Of course, you can plug out the cards and use in your own dashboards, but we're choosing something there for you. You were very much involved in this building the energy dashboard. How did you experience all this?
It was nice, I think. Like, just of course you have to do a lot of assumptions. Like every country is different, and every user has a different house and stuff. So there are some assumptions to be made, but like just thinking about how it would work and how it could work and how it makes the most sense for most users, and just laying that out, I think that's pretty cool and nice. And it was, I think, the first project we did with our UX designer Matthias.
So
it was also interesting, like it went pretty fast in the designing and the development stage. Like he was like, what? How is it going this fast? If you're coming from the corporate world, then it's a little different.
Yes. I think our speed of development has always been high. I mean, we had, of course, the release cycles used to be every 2 weeks. Now it's monthly, but we move fast, we iterate fast, we gather feedback, build on top of that. That's always been our strength, right? You want the coolest stuff, you get the coolest stuff. We'll take care of that.
No, that's something what when you asked me to join Nabokasa, I was like, yeah, sure. Like always work with the newest stuff and just build new stuff, new cool stuff. And that who doesn't want that?
I mean, I think that's, when we look at the front end has been one of the most impactful things that have changed and improved over time, that has, to attract like a new generation of users, right? Like not you no longer had to be a system administrator to run Home Assistant. Now you can just get a box, run Home Assistant, use the UI, configure your automations, build out your smart home, and it's still all private and local. And that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's just so cool that it's just available for more people. That eventually I can just get my dad and my mom to make Home Assistant work without needing help from me and stuff. Like that's just awesome.
Yeah. I had my dad paired his own device the other day. I was like, heck yeah, you can just do it.
Mission accomplished.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much for taking the time, Bram, to kind of reflect on the front end and dashboard work that's been going on. And thank you, of course, for all your efforts in Home Assistant. Like, we wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for you today. And
I love doing it. So
awesome. All right. Well, talk to you soon. So the next contributor, he needs no introduction. He is the face of Home Assistant. Welcome, Franck Nijhof. Hey.
Hello, Paulus.
So, I have many things I want to ask to you today, but I think the first question I want to ask is, how did you get to Home Assistant?
Oh boy. Yeah, that's a bit of a different story. So for me, it was actually just boredom. I was literally bored. My youngest son was just born. It was pretty stressful, and I was sitting on a couch and needed to be silent because everybody was finally at sleep, and started Googling and working a bit on open source stuff. I did some more open source stuff back in the day already. And then I found Home Assistant. There was some interesting things there that I was looking at and realizing what people could do with it. And I just noticed that I might be able to fix some bugs or could solve some things there and maybe add some things there. So that's literally what I started to do from the couch to do something about my boredom. And it turned out I actually started to really like it. That was really nice. I just sticked around because it was just a really cool community.
People know you, of course, from the Home Assistant release notes, but another part that a lot of people know you from is the community add-ons. It's been, the community add-ons has always been a fascinating story because it's add-ons is not Home Assistant, right? It's these other applications, but it's people want these applications. They want to work with Home Assistant, and it's been a good mix, a good synergy.
And it provides a bit of an application spectrum to Home Assistant, right? That's the way I jumped into it back in the day as well. Originally it was designed to run services, right? Like a Mosquito for MQTT or MySQL database, things like that. That was the original idea behind running add-ons. And I was like, but we could do more. And it is essentially Docker, but more integrated, way more integrated than Docker could be. But we could use that for different things. So that's the way I approached it. I originally built the web terminal. For example, that was one of the first things I built because I needed to go into the system to develop on it.
One fun fact I think about you, Frank, is when did you start using Home Assistant?
that must have been somewhere in, I started joining the community or contributing or getting interested in August 2017. I think I start my first installation and actually using it somewhere around Christmas 2018, which is almost a year later. Because I was here because I liked the coding, and of course I had an instance for testing and playing around, right? You have to develop on something, but actually using it myself, no. I did not for the first year. I don't know why. That was not my interest at first. It was just the community is so great. That's just the thing that Home Assistant brings. And if I look at Home Assistant itself, I personally have a lot of interest in the automation part of it, because I feel like in general home automation should be automated because that's in the name. It should be there, but you should not notice it. but if it's not working, you should miss it. I like the power of the automation engine. That's where a lot of my time went into as well during my last 6 years. I strongly and fully believe in automating your home. It's an important factor of Home Assistant.
You took over from me making the release notes. I don't remember what year it was.
I think 4 years ago,
something like this. I mean, what I do know is that like you're a lot more organized than I am, and the release notes have really like leveled up. I used to be like, it's 5 minutes before the release, wrap up, publish, go. And nowadays,
it literally was that, right? Like we had a 2-week release cycle, and if you did a release, the release back then was really just like a release of the current development version. So that was every 2 weeks you tagged a version from development and then generated the release notes. And there was nothing wrong with that. That's just how it just like went back in the day. The release notes were generated at the moment you did release.
So when you took over the release notes, I think we were still on the 2-week cycle, right?
Yeah. No, 3 weeks, I believe. We already stretched to 3 weeks.
Yeah, because we introduced the beta, right? And then, in 2020... in December 2020, I think was the big, the big moment.
That was the big one. The big moment when we released Home Assistant 1.0 as beta, right? That's the one you are referring to, right? Yeah. That was an epic moment, by the way, in general.
Yeah,
but that's why we went for the monthly cycle.
Yeah, that's why for the date versioning. Yeah, I think that like it was so interesting because we, back in the days was Home Assistant started as version 0.7, and then we went to 0.8, 9, 10, 11, and then we went to 0.99, and then we went to 0.100, right? And all this time, the whole time, people were like, please release 1.0. We want stability. We want Home Assistant. Like, there has to be like the platform. And we sat down and we were like thinking of features that had to make 1.0 to be like user friendly, or certain like levels of automation we want to offer. And like it didn't work, right? It
is hard, right? Like when we talk about breaking changes, it's of course we make breaking changes in time, and we do that if there's no other way. There's like a bigger picture to solve and a user improvement to like consider. But there are also many breaking changes that are third party, like APIs that disappear or change, or manufacturers even like closing down APIs or things, whatever else happens, right? There will always be breaking changes, especially like look at the huge number of integrations and devices we can work with. If one drops, we have a breaking change. So what does stability mean at that point? And that was the whole discussion. Can we ever reach 1.0? And what would it do to our innovation and the things that we love doing, like quickly iterate? But also, what would it mean for things that break third party, and how will people perceive that? Like, how would, as a user, you would think it's stable, but still things can break. So when would 1.0 be fair?
Yeah, no, never. I think date versioning really helps us communicate to our users how we work and the kind of the way Home Assistant is developed. And there shouldn't be like, let me just wait 2 more months for this like 1.0 features. Like, no, you just jump on the bandwagon and you just ride along and you just get cool stuff every month.
Yeah, iterate quickly, release fast, and iterate. And that's what we've been doing actually since as long as I remember. It's kind of like we release new features quickly, even though it's not fully blown finished yet. But it's also often that the feedback that comes from the community helps us develop the features more, and maybe even change direction that happened before too, or gain new insights and even complete like new additions to it.
It's not just only internal, right? I feel like our release cycle influences the whole community. So as a whole community, we start releasing initially bi-weekly, afterwards monthly. So the Home Assistant Creator Network, like they create a bunch of content around every release, because this is like time for them to like produce videos and play with the new stuff and teach people about how it works. And I think that's just really great to see that as a community we have this space, which nowadays is a lot more sustainable, and it really helps us grow fast and fast and fast.
Well, yeah, the amount of contributors and like PRs and pull requests, the code changes that people contribute to HomeAssistant.com, it's just stunning. It's such an incredible amount. It's hard to keep up for ourselves as well, and we try to develop core as well. That's mainly the task we do, right? We are mostly working on foundation, while their contributions are generally like the integrations and new features that are built on top of that foundation. But it's hard to keep up with that as well. It's so much, and so many people are involved.
I actually think that sometimes it's not clear to people how much is happening. People know we were the second most active open source project on all of GitHub last year. But what that means is that no, there's just 100 pull requests coming in a day, and we merge a bunch of them, and we review another bunch, and we keep iterating, and it's a lot.
It's a lot, and it's fantastic. It's sometimes it can be tiring at times, right? And that's definitely true. It's a lot, and it keeps I don't know. It's like a leak that never stops. Kind of feeling at times, but at the same time, it's so beautiful to see. And what I enjoy the most, personally, is often the day after the release. It's so cool to see the things people do with those new features that landed. And it just sparks everybody's ideas and mindset, and then the community comes to life. And that's also the moment we see new things flowing in for the next month based on what's released now, right? I love the day after, the videos that the creators make, the podcast, the things that people write about it, or even the Discord chat where people are discussing how to use and utilize features that have been released.
We don't plan releases that much, right? We have some direction, some things that we are kind of steering towards, but there's just at least half the contributions, if not 2/3, is just people working on the things they want to work on, which is things they want to either add to Home Assistant or enhance an integration, fix bugs, and that's just awesome.
Yeah. Sometimes the PR comes in, sometimes a major contribution has been done with a huge feature that completely derails our plan, right? And that becomes the main thing for that release, because we all jump on board. I believe last December of last year, we had, for example, the local calendars, the full calendar integration that was rewritten. That just came in steaming, and it was just let's do that. And sometimes things just get out of control as well. Also last year, we had a discussion about how to improve the UI for automations. And I was playing a bit with it, and you jumped in with collapsing, and then we added some more, and the whole team jumped on, and some contributors jumped on, and we had a full release based on automations, and that just happened.
Yeah, that was really great.
Yeah. So yeah, we would like to plan at times, but we're sometimes fail at doing so, mainly because the community steers as well, right? We're an open source project, and it's steering from contribution mostly.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Frank, for joining us today, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me, Paulus, and thank you all for watching.
All right, that was Frank. Thank you so much again. And then now we're going to talk to Pierre, who leads infrastructure at Nabu Casa, to talk about Home Assistant Cloud, all the cool things it do, and what's coming next. Hello, hey Pierre.
Hey.
All right, so Home Assistant Cloud, it's a feature, a service offered by Nabu Casa, and it's been the way how we fund, full-time developers to work on Home Assistant. What is it exactly?
In fact, Home Assistant Cloud is a bunch of services provided by Nabu Casa. The first one is the remote access. The idea is to provide an hassle-free solution to connect to your Home Assistant instances wherever you are in the world, without having to buy a custom domain name, configure it, setting up your router. Everything respect the privacy. because we don't know anything about your house, etc., etc. And it's click and go, basically. The second service we provide is the ability to connect with Alexa and Google Assistant. If you have those at home, it's very easy to configure what entity you expose to to Alexa or Google Assistant. And again, hassle-free, you just click on a button. You don't have to add any code, set up an account on AWS or Google Console, etc., etc. And one more thing is the text-to-speech and speech-to-text that we introduced a few releases ago to help with voice assistant. And here again, it's high-quality audio and voice product by the service. And it's, once again, just click and you have it.
Yeah, I think this is the gist, right? It's like one click, you have it. That's the offer. And I think, but when you use Home Assistant, it's all local. And when things are all local, we can't just you can't just access it while you're away from home. And Google cannot talk to it, and Amazon cannot talk to it. And with all of these features of Home Assistant Cloud, like, boom, it just works.
Yeah, and I will focus on one thing. It's privacy first and secure. I want to repeat that because that's one of our biggest concern at Nabukasa, privacy. It wouldn't make any sense to rely on Home Assistant, which is local first, privacy first, etc., and provide a service who stores all your data, etc., etc. So that's the first thing. And I would also add a use case. To me, it allows me to configure and control my parent and sister's house because I don't live close to them. So they want to have the benefits of Domotic, and I configured Home Assistant. But as the things evolve, the needs evolve, I can't go to their home, so I have a remote access, and it's very easy. And I had nothing to configure. Just click on a button, and I know it's secure, private, and it works.
Yeah, reliability is very important. Like, what do we do, right, to make sure it always works?
We don't have only one server in one region. We have multiple servers. And for reliability and also for speed, we have the same services in different regions, not only in the US, we also have in Asia and one in Europe, sorry. So,
right, so does this mean that like a European user will just connect to the European server and like it will all stay there?
Yeah.
We also have a new, Home Assistant Cloud. We're not only, you are not only together with Joachim working on like the foundation, stability, scalability. Like, we're also working on new features, right?
Yeah, and the thing that will come very, very, very soon is the ability to have a custom domain name for your instance. Right now, you have big domain.ui.nabu.casa, and for some users, for everybody, it's nearly impossible to remember the exact domain name. So most part of the people go on the account website and log in on the website and click on connect on my instance. So the idea is to provide an alias to that. For example, I don't know, if you buy any domain, you can configure a subdomain on that, pointing on the remote domain we have for you. So which means you don't have to remember the full domain we generated for you. You just remember myhouse.mydomain.com. And this is the biggest thing we added so far for this release. And we also add a small thing, which is the ability to see on your account if your instance is connected to our service. So in Home Assistant, you can see if your instance is connected to the relayer, so the system that relay the information from and to Alexa and Google Assistant. And now on your account, you can see if your instance is connected to use the remote UI. And then you alternate domain name.
Yeah, so I think custom domains is going to be great for people that are more experienced Home Assistant users that have used DNS in the past and they kind of want to keep using these kind of things. They can now continue doing that. All right, thank you so much, Pierre, for joining us today, and keep up the good work together with Joachim and the infrastructure team. And I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Okay, so that was Pierre. Thank you, Pierre. Thank you, infrastructure team, for all your work on Home Assistant Cloud and making this the best way for people to use and extend Home Assistant with extra features. Time for the next topic. When we were building out Home Assistant, we realized that we're making Home Assistant better every day. And every month a new release, new features. And Home Assistant is great and amazing and awesome in every thinkable way. However, what was missing is that sometimes people will still have devices that talk to the cloud. And then Home Assistant has to talk to the cloud. And of course, Home Assistant afterwards will process that data locally or run automations locally. But is it really private? Is it really local control? Not really. And so we realized that not just Home Assistant has to be a focus of privacy and local control. We want the whole smart home to be good. So we came up with a vision for the smart home that we call the open home. And the open home is about three things. The first thing is privacy. Every device that runs in your house should be private. Private means that every data that it collects, which is data about you, your life, your home, it should be local and remain local first. It is okay to have a toggle to share this data to the cloud, but a user needs to choose to do this. It shouldn't be the default. The second thing is choice. Users need to be able to choose whatever they want to put in their house based on their requirements, needs, and design and look of their rooms. It shouldn't be that because a user has bought one device, that to make things keep working together, the same devices to be from the same manufacturer. We don't want vendor lock-in. We need to be able to choose and not be held hostage basically by a vendor and whatever direction they want to take their products. And the third thing was durability. But the durability value, whenever I had to explain it as part of the open home, I realized that it takes a lot of time to explain. It takes a lot of examples to explain. And so today we want to expand the scope and we want to update the open home vision. Instead of durability, we want to talk about sustainability. Because with durability, we wanted to have a smart home that lasts. We want to make sure that whatever you put in your house, it will continue to work for at least 10 years. If we look at smart homes today, we see that every 3 years there's an upgrade cycle, some people even every 2 years. Imagine that you put 5-6 smart devices in every room of your house, and then in 3 years, as a vendor, you're going to say, oh, user, you have to throw everything out and buy again. That doesn't work. Like, it's not sustainable. It is a waste of resources, a waste of money. It's a waste of time. So devices need to be made to last. And if they, at the end of the life or when the user cannot use them anymore, we should be able to repurpose them for something else or to reuse them in another location, in another thing. It shouldn't like just break because, I don't know, planned obsolescence or because it's like, oh, it was like locked into this plug and it cannot work with this other device. Now, sustainability for Home Assistant and for the smart home also means, for example, energy management. Home Assistant has introduced energy management a couple of years ago, and it's been on the top of our mind ever since. With Home Assistant energy management, you can see where your energy is going that you get from the grid. You see how much, if you have solar, we can even predict how much solar you're going to generate, and you can use it for automations. For example, charge my e-bike or do the laundry whenever I'm generating a lot of excess solar beyond what I'm currently using. You can also integrate batteries, water, and gas, and really get insight in all your resource usage and your impact on the climate. Because a sustainable home is a smart home. Where there's climate change is happening, and together as a society, we need to make sure that our homes adapt and has as little impact on the climate as possible. And to do that, we don't just need smart homes, we actually need smart cities. But smart cities, of course, rely on smart homes to exist. And we see that Home Assistant is already in the right position to support building up towards smart cities. We already see a bunch of universities, including Stanford and Northeastern University, use Home Assistant in their experiments to gather data and experiment to see how we can save energy and these kind of things. Now, so that's why today the open home will now be about privacy, choice, and sustainability. All right, so the open home is changing slightly. There's something else that is changing slightly. And to talk more about that, I would like to introduce Madelena Mak, lead of product and design at Home Assistant and Nabu Casa. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
Yep, it's good.
Great. So
it's 10th year anniversary. Happy birthday, Home Assistant.
Yes. So, what are we going to talk about today?
Well, we're going to talk about one tiny aspect from product and design. And I think that would be pretty delightful for everyone who is watching the stream right now.
All right, bring it on.
All right. So, as you may know, product and design is all about making sure that everything that we do at Home Assistant aligns with what user wants and what user needs. And there's a lot of things, right? From features, fun things, to things that delight them as well. And for the 10th anniversary, we have a little something, which is called the logo.
Woo! Yes. You know, rip it off. Yeah. Okay, yeah, the logo. So the logo is cool because like I made the first logo. You know,
oh yeah, you're the designer.
Yeah, we had a logo. It was like the most basic house that I could make. I think I drew it in like Illustrator and like, I don't know. It was just a white house, brown roof, and I guess a blue, Home Assistant blue was already there for the window and the door.
Yeah. I mean, it was pretty good for what it's worth, right? I mean, and also like Home Assistant, the name is so direct, right? And it's even to the way that it's refreshing because, as you know, a lot of startups at the time, 10 years ago, they have all these different random alphabet soup, and Home Assistant is so direct. It is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So what happens? How did that become the current logo that we are seeing?
Yeah. Well, this was all, you know, I'm a programmer, right? I'm not a designer. I'm not like any of that kind of things. And so when Google came out with material design guidelines, and so instead of having our own style guide, we use Google's. That was great. It was easy to get like a fresh look. A lot of open source projects tend to like have, you know, be programmer first, like created, and they don't always look as appealing as like software that is more commercial focused. And so this gave us kind of a same edge, like, oh wow, Home Assistant looks professional. And so with that also there were logo guidelines. Everything was like a blue circle or a blue square with rounded corners, and then the logo in the middle with like a bit of drop shadow. And so Jeremy Geldman, he was a colleague at the time where I worked at the company, and you know he in his lunch break he was like, oh yeah, let's get you a new logo. And so just like click, and boom, this was it. And it's
nice.
Yeah. And you know, it has iterated over time. Like we started with the big one, and we had a small one right away for like the fav icon, right, with like the 3 angles. Kind of, you don't see it that often.
So that's always like so there's always 2 versions going on, and also a lot of variations too, right? Because it's not just used on the app or the website; it's also used on like works with Home Assistant.
Yes, yes.
There's a bunch of hardware too, right? So
I mean, now it's like on the Sky Connect, it's on the Home Assistant yellow, the Home Assistant blue had it. Now, I mean, the whole shirt I'm wearing, right, is yet another variation, by the way.
This is not whole merch. Yes. check out our merch website.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yes. And that's one problem that we realized is that when we try to make the logo that was done like during lunchtime to do so many things, we realized that even though it was a very well designed and also very recognizable, memorable logo, right? It started to not fit in all the use cases possible. And with what's coming up, 10th anniversary and like a few new products announcements in mind, we realized that we need to really simplify it and like make it work across like all media. So that's what happens. Yeah, well, shall we take a look at it?
Let's take a look. Yes. Yeah. So, Madelena, the great new logo and identity. Tell us about it.
Guys, introducing Home Assistant. Yes, so as you can see from the previous version, this is iteration, right, from the previous logo. What we want to make sure is that this is versatile so that it can be used everywhere, right, from print, from apps in tiny spaces on mobile screen, but also in like large screens, like such as a giant dashboard that is on your 42-inch TV, right? So we have 3 goals in mind. We want to make sure that it's familiar. So old friends and also newcomers who are like from other setups, they can feel instantly familiar with what it is and also feel that this is something that is just as mature and also professional as like other competitors out there. And we also want this to be refined so that it reflects our growth and maturity of the project as a whole that has been running for 10 years. With like more rigor and craftsmanship in how this is designed. And as you can see, everything here is very much proportional and feels very nice and crafted. And lastly is that with all the different initiatives we have from hardware to like the partnership programs, we want to make sure that all these different logos that we created over the years are all unified and standardized with the same like Home Assistant logo so that it cleaner and also increases awareness of everything that we do.
Yeah.
So
and of course,
yes.
It's beautiful.
Oh yes, of course. Last but not the least, want to make sure that it looks great. It's a brighter blue, right? As you can see, the blue is a little bit more energetic, joyful, free of clouds. Clouds. See what I mean? No clouds.
Yeah.
And it's the same house, right? But it's more abstracted now, and it's a little more simplified and more iconic. No gable, no chimneys, no pollution. More sustainable. We always wonder if we should make this joke or not, but I guess it's out now. And last but not the least, right, the most recognizable is always the thing in the middle, which we actually don't even know what it is. Sometimes it's a tree, it's an antenna, PCB, but PCB isn't really drawn like this. But anyway, what it represents is that it's smart and it's something that is connected home, like everything in the house is all joined together, right, with this powerful technology behind it, which is Home Assistant.
Yeah.
So yes, this is the new logo. And if you want to find out more about it, you can find it on our brand design repository at design.home-assistant.io.
Right. And we're going to update the merch store, so you'll be able to
you can get one of these.
Yeah, so you get one of our shirts that we're wearing. Of course, it's coming to Home Assistant. I mean, we actually didn't mention that, but like all the apps, the website, everything is going to be updated.
Yeah.
But instead of trying to do a big presser release that we had to do every release today, we're just going to take it casual. So we hope that, the October release of Home Assistant, we should have a full rollout. So it will be for the next 2 weeks. You'll just gradually see the new logo pop up everywhere. All right.
Thanks for having me,
Madelena, and I'll see you soon. All right, so that was the new logo. Now it's time for something else. But first, let me change back into my old outfit. Okay, And now next up, something I'm personally super excited about, and that is that we're going to announce a new product. And to help me announce this new product, I'm going to call in the cavalry. So here we have Uwe, who leads hardware at Nabukasa, Stefan, who leads operating system at Nabukasa, and Madelena, who leads product and design at Nabukasa. Now, I'm going to park them a bit on the side because I first want to talk a bit about the backstory, how we got to a new product that we want to announce today. So we started out with hardware with the Home Assistant Blue. And we announced this in 2020, sold mainly in 2021. And it was like an experiment. We didn't do anything. We literally just made a case for an existing box and we sold that together with hard kernel. Now, this was great, but we were not really in charge. So this was kind of like an experiment. So we felt that we need something for anyone to really try out and like play with. So in 2021, at the end of the year, we launched on CrowdSupply a crowdfunding campaign for Home Assistant Yellow. And with Home Assistant Yellow, we designed the perfect hub. Like our goal back then was to actually create like a hub that anyone can use to get started with Home Assistant, but we really couldn't help ourselves. So we put in all the stuff that we want from a home automation hub. It had Zigbee and Thread. It had an M2 slot, so you can put in an SSD. It was built around the Raspberry Pi 4 compute module, and like the case looked absolutely stunning. Over the years, with the chip shortage and the component shortage, like it took a while before Yellow became available, and the prices went up from components. And today it's kind of expensive, and there's a lot of features that like not everybody will use, depending on where they are in like their learning level of Home Assistant. And especially when we kind of looked at it from like a distance, we were like, the Home Assistant Yellow is great. But if somebody wants to get started today with Home Assistant and has no idea what Home Assistant is about, they will know about Smart Home because generally new users to Home Assistant come from like a Google or an Amazon. They know what Smart Home is about, but they don't know what Home Assistant is about. They don't know about all the features that the Home Assistant can offer. And so a lot of the things that we put in Yellow, they don't really care about that. And the result is that if we want them to pay for it, but they don't know if they need it, then people are like, this is not a good place to enter the Home Assistant ecosystem. So today, we're going to announce the Home Assistant Green. Home Assistant Green is a new hub that is meant for people that are starting out with Home Assistant, their first steps into the Home Assistant ecosystem. And to talk more a bit about like how it all came to play, I want to invite Uwe.
Hello. So I'm Uwe. I'm the hardware lead, as Paulus said. The Home Assistant Green is our take on an entry hub for everybody. It's based on a Rockchip RK3566 chip. It comes with 4 gigabytes of RAM and 32 gigabytes of eMMC, which we believe is plenty for having it run for a longer time. It comes with everything on it. You don't even need to install anything. It just like comes with everything included. And you can give your journey with Home Assistant a start. And I would hand over at this point to Stefan to talk about the operating system for the Home Assistant Green.
Yeah, just like any other board, we also added support for the Home Assistant Green to Home Assistant operating system. And the Home Assistant operating system will also be pre-installed from the factory. So that's kind of the nice thing with Green. Now we have a single version. It always comes with the Home Assistant operating system pre-installed. So you take it out of the box, you start it up, and it will run Home Assistant. For us, we carefully selected the hardware that for us, from the software side, support for this product is easy. So the Rockchip is already supported by upstream Linux, which meant that we could port Home Assistant OS quite easily on that board. It also means that we will be able to support that board for a long time. We already have a quite good track record of supporting hardware for a long time, like the Raspberry Pi 3, which is still supported right now in Home Assistant OS, got released in 2016. And we also intend to do that with Green. Besides, of course, we will continue also to support Yellow, just like Green as well. Furthermore, compared to yellow, what we try to improve with green is the whole story around how you could recover in case you actually run into the situation that something is not working correctly, or maybe you want to resell your Home Assistant Green and you want to make sure that everything is gone. You want to completely reinstall it from scratch. We now have an SD card slot where you can put in an SD card, which then flashes the internal eMMC storage completely new with a new Home Assistant operating system. So this the recovery process is now super simple, and it works always. So there's no fiddling with like USB cables and whatnot.
I want to just emphasize that you mentioned SD card. Like Home Assistant Green does not run from the SD card like a Raspberry Pi. It runs from eMMC storage, which is a storage that's embedded inside the Green. The SD card is really for recovery, but it can actually also be used to repurpose the device. So maybe you outgrow Home Assistant Green and you're moving to a Home Assistant Yellow or like a virtual machine or whatever crazy thing. You can actually repurpose the Green with an SD card, install a different operating system, use it for a different feature or functionality or anything. So, this is kind of our way to make sure that, we don't want our products to become e-waste. We want you to be able to keep using it, repurposing it, and hack on.
So we have, besides the SD card slot, which is for recovery, there's also a button which allows it's a power button, so it allows to shut down the board. We made it such that if you press it short, nothing will happen. You need to press it 6 seconds, and it will actually shut down cleanly, so gracefully. It will gracefully shut down Home Assistant. And if you press it for 12 seconds, it will force it off in case needed. Besides that, we have an HDMI port, so you can actually connect a display with Home Assistant Green. And it's actually meant for debugging, so just to see what Home Assistant OS is.
It's solely meant for debugging, right?
Not with this dashboard, yeah.
Yes, it does not show any dashboard.
Exactly. Then, of course, the Ethernet port. It's a gigabit Ethernet port. Then we have USB. We have 2 USB ports, which can be used, for instance, to plug in Sky Connect, of course, to extend it with Zigbee or Thread. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Stefan. So next up, the Home Assistant Green looks amazing. This is thanks to the work from Madelena. And not only does the box look, the Home Assistant Green itself look amazing, but also the box that it's coming in is fabulous. So to talk more about this, here's Madelena.
Hello, it's me again, Madelena. I'm very happy that this is like essentially one of the first projects that I work on. I'm here, and I'm very happy to be involved in this. So there are 3 product values that we decided that the Green should be based on. So 1 is easy to use, 2nd is versatile, and 3rd is trustworthy. And in terms of design, that translates to making sure that the user experience is as easy and simple as possible, making sure that the design is sustainable in the use of the materials and also how it's used in terms of reusability, as Stefan has demonstrated. And then last but not the least, the box and the design should be beautiful. It should be appealing to all family members or roommates or housemates within your house. It just looks very good when you put it next to like your home decor. So for these 3 things, we rethought everything for the design of the Home Assistant Green, essentially a smart home hub hardware from the ground up. We look at all the things that we've done right and all the things that we can do better. So everything from the box itself, the packaging, to the documentation, to the onboarding experience for the entire product has been rethought. When you first receive the box, right, this is the Home Assistant Green, the unboxing, which is always a very cool moment for anyone who like to tinker with hardware or anyone who like to have some new things that is going to upgrade your smart home. Right? The packaging is recyclable. It's printed with the design of the Green on the outside, and also there are more details at the bottom as well. As you can see, the tab of the box opens in the shape of the house, every detail has been thought about. You open the box, we make sure that it's as easy to understand as possible. Everything is in front of you at a glance. There's a box on the left, there's a power supply clearly marked on the right. Underneath the box, there's also an extra sticker as well as the Ethernet cable. We make sure that it's as easy to start as these graphics and all these like designs suggest. All you need to do is plug in the power cable, plug in the Ethernet cable to the router, and you're good to go. Once it's started, you might notice how nice the enclosure looks. So the white light indicates the power. Those LEDs shines through in the translucent enclosure that is reminiscent of the Home Assistant yellow. You can see it has like an open and transparent enclosure, and that represents essentially one of the greatest values of Home Assistant, which is privacy, which what it needs is transparency and openness, that you can actually see what's going on inside. You can actually see that that's the hardware that runs it. The chip is mounted at the bottom to the heatsink, and it has a really large aluminum heatsink. It's extruded and CNC milled to make sure that it has a nice, smooth surface. It is anodized in black and contrasts very well with the colors of the green PCB as well as the frosted white top enclosure.
All right. Thank you, Madelena. I think next up, everybody is waiting to hear how much does the Home Assistant Green cost and when will it be available? So next up is Uwe again.
The Home Assistant Green is available at this very moment. You can buy it. You can buy it at Seed Studio right now, and it costs not $200, not $100. It costs $99, less than 100 euros, at least we hope. And you can buy it right now. Then the next batch of 40,000 devices will be available a month later by the end of October, and it will be distributed by our whole distributor network, which we are so happy to have. So if you miss the first 1,000, please don't fear, there will be next batch.
Oh, wow. Did you really say $99? Did I hear it right? 99?
I did.
Wow. So I can get like a bunch for my family and friends, like everyone who wants
and
to
you
run
should, and everybody else should, but probably not everybody from the first 1,000 devices. Wait for the other 40,000 to come.
Yeah. Like during the development of the Green, we've really focused on like affordability was always the number one priority. Like it had to be $99. Can we get to $99? And so we've done it. And so we're really proud, and we hope that you, your friends, your family can really start enjoying Home Assistant at its fullest. All right. Thank you, crew. Great product.
Right. So
Thank
exciting.
you, everybody.
Thank you so much again. 10 years.
Woo.
10 years.
All right. Okay. That was it for today. That was 10 years of Home Assistant. Great looking back with some original contributors, some great new logo, great new Home Assistant Green. Thank you so much for watching today, and thank you so much for supporting the Home Assistant project.
Thank you for supporting Home Assistant. Danke, dass Home Assistant verwendet. Yes!
Thank you for supporting the Home Assistant project.
Takk for din støtte til Home Assistant-prosjektet.
Thanks for using Home Assistant.
Grazie per utilizzare Home Assistant. Thank you for using Home Assistant.
Danke für eure Unterstützung.
Thank you for using Home Assistant. Bedankt voor het gebruiken van Home Assistant.
Thank you for using Home Assistant.
Danke, dass ihr Home Assistant unterstützt.
Thank you for supporting the Home Assistant project.
Bedankt voor het gebruiken met Home Assistant.
Thank you for using Home Assistant.
Tack för att du använder Home Assistant.
Thank you for using ESP Home. And Home Assistant too.
Dank dat du Home Assistant unterstützt.
תודה לתמיכה בהום אסיסטנט.
Thank you for using Home Assistant.
Merci d'utiliser Home Assistant Cloud.
Thank you for using Home Assistant.
Dank studeer Home Assistant Beaufort.
Thank you for supporting Home Assistant.
Merci dass ihr Home Assistant unterstützt.
Salut tout le monde. Merci d'utiliser Home Assistant.
Thank you for using Home Assistant.
Vielen Dank für eure Unterstützung des Home Assistant Projekts.
Dankjewel dat je Home Assistant gebruikt.
Thank you for trusting and believing in official Home Assistant hardware.
Tak for din støtte til Home Assistant.
Dank je voor wat kan boeken.
Thank you for using Home Assistant. Javeiro, Portugal. Obrigado por utilizar o Home Assistant.
Onwinnig bedankt dat je Home Assistant gebruikt.
Thank you for Home Assistant.
Danke, dass du unseren Home Assistent unterstützt.
Greetings from San Diego. Thank you for supporting Home Assistant.
Dank voor het ondersteunen en gebruiken van Home Assistant.
Live long and prosper.
Merci à tous d'utiliser Home Assistant.
Hi, happy birthday and thank you for your support of Home Assistant.
Merci dat je Home Assistant gebruikt.
Thanks for using Home Assistant.
Bedankt dat je Home Assistant gebruikt.
Thanks for using Home Assistant.
Thank you so much, Home Assistant.
Thank you for being part of the Home Assistant journey.
Merci dat je Home Assistant gebruikt.
Top dat je Home Assistant gebruikt.
Thank you for supporting Home Assistant.
Tack för att ni stödjer Home Assistant-projektet.
Thank you for using Home Assistant.
Tack för att du använder Home Assistant.
Thank you for using Home Assistant.
Dankjewel voor jullie steun aan Home Assistant.
Thank you for using Home Assistant.
Tack för att du använder Home Assistant.
Thank you for using Home Assistant.
You are very welcome. Showing appreciation in 2 seconds.